Let's go ahead and get to this situation that unfolded in Las Vegas. I can scarcely believe that the details of this are correct, but we have double and triple checked. And yes, in fact, this all really did unfold. Let's put this up on the screen and shout out to, I'm actually not sure her full name, Mel. Her handle on Twitter is Village Crazy Lady.
Yeah,
she's done some really important reporting, not just here. So shout out to her for really breaking this down and highlighting this, bringing it to the forefront. So she tweets, the executive director of Israel's National Cyber Directorate was arrested this week in Las Vegas in a child predator ring sting. There were a number of other people who were arrested as well, I think 7 different individuals. So he gets arrested in this sting of trying to lure a child on a computer for sex acts. And then he's released and allowed to go back to Israel. Keep this up on the screen for just one moment. So you can see she has screenshots here. One from Ynet News, which is an Israeli publication, says U.S. detains worker from Israel's top cyber defense agency for questioning. The prime minister's office says the incident resolved quickly, ending with brief questioning of National Cyber Directorate staffer before his release. So that's the way they're spinning it, is like, oh, he was just questioning, it was all fine. You've got the local news saying that all of these individuals, by the way, one of the other dudes in here was a pastor, a minister, so that's cool too. But he actually was arrested, apparently facing charges. They all face felony charges of luring a child with a computer for a sex act and were booked into the Henderson Detention Center, with the exception of one of the individuals who's booked into a different detention center. So again, all of them arrested and booked. You can see she also has this guy, Tom Alexandrovich, who was the executive director of still is, Israel's National Cyber Director, which is a very important position, by the way. There you can see his Twitter profile, so you can see sort of, what his whole deal is. Let's put the next piece up on the screen with some more details reported out here by Mel. She says, just to clarify, she's got the arrest record here on the right. Okay, so again, rebutting the line of the Israeli prime minister's office saying, oh, he's just questioning he was released. No, no, no. Here he is, the arrest record right there on the right of your screen. She says, number one, Tom Alexandrovich was 100% charged. It's on the county website. His next hearing is supposed to be 8/27/2025. I'm sure that's not happening. Number two, Tom was charged with luring a child with a computer to engage in sexual conduct. Number three, in order to be charged with this specific offense, Tom had to seek out a child under the age of 16 with the explicit purpose of luring them from their parents to engage in sexual conduct, who, she says, in the Trump admin intervened on behalf of him. Was it cash? Wouldn't surprise me since the FBI was part of the sting. We want answers now. Sean King does have some reporting. Now, his quote-unquote reporting should be taken with a grain of salt. He claims to have sources within the police department who said, yes, this was, our sting, and the Trump administration intervened and forced him to be released so that he could fly back to Israel in order to escape any sort of charges or accountability for this. I don't even know what to say. I mean, again, the details of this you could not even make up, but it appears that he was caught dead to rights as part of this broader child pedophilia sting in Las Vegas. And then the federal government, the Trump administration, very likely, we don't have that totally locked down, but very likely, because how else would this happen, intervened and said, no, you got to let this guy go. And he's allowed to fly back to Israel. Wow. Unbelievable, Saagar.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Well, I think a lot of it speaks for itself, so I'll just leave some of it.
Not much commentary is really needed here, is it?
I was just,
I mean, we could... Yeah, we could talk about, also what's going on with Epstein kind of connects into this, that you could make that connection if you'd like to, but you could talk about whose interests are being protected here. Yeah, just so you know that this isn't the first time
how Jewish American pedophiles hide from justice in Israel. In a tense stakeout, they talk about having to look at, quote, the widespread problem of many accused American pedophiles flee to Israel. Bringing them to justice can be very difficult. In fact, an entire watchdog organization has to track pedophiles inside of Israel because they flee there and they seek, they use their dual citizenship basically to seek, legal escaped the legal system here of the United States. Everyone will recall that Epstein at one point fled to Israel. It was open talk in U.S. society, returned from Israel to the United States for his sweetheart plea agreement in April of 2008.
Yeah, he was negotiating that deal from Israel,
yes,
correct?
That's right. And what they say, actually, inside of it is at least more than 60 have fled the U.S. to Israel, given its limited resources to identify these individuals. They say the actual number is probably much higher. Again, basically a weaponization of dual citizenship. But in here, it could actually be a weaponization of diplomatic immunity. Now, you and I have lived here in Washington, and/or you lived in New York too. So the diplomatic immunity thing is always, a source of tension. We have a ton of diplomats here in D.C. They have diplomatic plates. They often ignore traffic signs or whatever. But that doesn't absolve you, as it says very specifically, of felony charges. It's limited, but in many cases, like if you commit like murder or something, it's not like you just get diplomatic immunity. That's not how it works.
Right.
And so one of the things, there are a lot of questions here, is how exactly did you escape, from a questioning standpoint, especially because all of the other people, from what we can see, have been arrested, right, in this sting. And by the way, there were some initial questions around this, but other organizations, news organizations, including The Guardian, have confirmed his identity. So we're going off of their reporting. But it is still, extraordinary, because the very fact that he was released, whether it was state, local, or federal, is outrageous, right? Because you have somebody came to our soil. He did the worst thing he can do, in my opinion. The absolute worst crime of all is trying to exploit a small child, right? As far as I'm concerned, that's where we get the death penalty. And then you get to flee the country and go back. There's just so much about, the actual crime itself, the way that our government is willing to look the other way. Again, we don't know if the feds were totally involved. I don't really see how they couldn't be.
How could they not be?
Because how do you just let somebody go like that? Or, maybe they got scared because he was a diplomat. He flashed the diplomatic passport.
But
That's possible.
Does he even qualify for diplomatic immunity?
I don't know.
He's not like an ambassador,
right.
He's an Israeli official, but not every government official is entitled to diplomatic immunity. It's supposed to be ambassadors, high commissioners, other senior diplomatic officials. So, no, I think it almost has to be that, probably the Israelis.
Look, somebody somewhere did something. That's all we need.
The Israelis caught wind.
Yeah.
They called up, the FBI, maybe it's Cash, maybe who knows. Someone in the Trump administration was like, this can't happen. And, and I'm sure they were, this will be a scandal and this will be a big deal and you don't want to have to deal with this, and hoped that it would just fly under the radar. And it may well have, if you didn't have, a few people, a few like Twitter sleuths and journalists who looked into this and were like, hey guys, this is kind of a big deal. But yeah, we need answers to who intervened, at what point, and at what level, because this is absolutely insane. To go back to the piece that Saagar was citing before, was that CBS News that did the reporting there? This was a few years back, like 2018 or so that report came out. But in any case, they talk about it and compare it to the scandal in the Catholic Church, where you had a mass cover-up. And within the Jewish community, oftentimes it's in these, more, Orthodox sects,
Hasidic in particular,
where they don't want, shame on the community. And so it's just, okay, well, you can flee to Israel and, there'll be people there who will take you in and protect you.
The Hasidic stuff is even crazier. I've read there's a New Yorker story from back in the day about inside the Hasidic community, how they protected.
I remember this too.
And he was like, they're like, oh, you just pay them off. Like you pay them $20,000 or whatever, and everybody makes it go away and nobody goes to NYPD. I was like, this is disgusting, because it was just a serial predator protected over and over and over again.
And they don't want scrutiny.
Yeah, they don't want scrutiny of their community, which is crazy. Sorry, you live in this country, By the way, if you want to live under religious law, there's a place called Israel. You can go and live there. Apparently, you can live with impunity here, apparently, to these Jewish American pedophiles. In the story, they talk about how some of the people who prey on children here go there, flee, and actually continue to, do it people. While they're in Israel. Of course, yeah. So they're going after Israeli children, too. It's sick.
Absolutely sick. Speaking of sick, you guys will recall there was a right to rape protest in Israel,
of course.
Because there were IDF soldiers who were caught on camera raping and abusing a Palestinian detainee. And, for once, there was an attempt to intervene, arrest these guys, and there was a mass protest against just the most basic level of accountability for these actions, which were again caught on camera. And apparently this debate over whether or not Israeli soldiers should be, raping prisoners continues to this day. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. This is a VO. This is Channel 12 News. This person says, it's one of the most popular news channels in Israel, and they host a debate for and against institutional rape of Hamas detainees as a policy. And remember, also, not that it would be okay even if they actually were quote unquote Hamas detainees, but they also arrest children. They arrest any man who is quote unquote a military age. The level of abuse that has been documented by multiple human rights organizations is just absolutely sickening. So they're having, a little pro and con, little crossfire style debate there on Israeli Channel 12 News. Let's go ahead and put this next one up on the screen, Saagar, because I know you're going to enjoy this one. The ADL has updated their glossary of extremism and hate, because they're really a really credible source now of extremism. And they say that America First is now considered to be an extremist term used by extremists in anti-Semitic, racist, and xenophobic ways. Now, let me be honest. There is a certain way in which you could define this that maybe you could get me to go along and agree, but we all know what's going on here.
Yeah.
We all know what's going on here. It's that there are any Republicans who use the America First label to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be supporting this genocide in Gaza. Maybe we should be focused on what is actually in the interest of our country and not participate in this barbarism that is going on with our tax dollars in our name. That's the part that they truly object to.
Of course, and they did this before. Remember the intermarriage thing that we talked about very recently? And the reason why all of this is important is that it's about defining the terms and making sure that all discussion, sane discussion, is pushed to the realm of being branded anti-Semitism. Now, I again think that it's backfiring spectacularly, and that's part of the reason why I don't quite get it. Popular culture has long moved now against Israel. Mainstream media is the last bastion of any pro-Israeli support.
Right.
And most people who are like us, who don't have any funding ties, right, to the establishment, can say what they want. When they're confronted with this level of smearing, they just say, screw you, I'm not going to deal with it anymore. Miss Rachel is actually the perfect example. She just shared this. I'll go ahead and read it. She says, the Stop Anti-Semitism is calling me evil for wanting starving children to have food. They called for me to be investigated by the DOJ because I care about Palestinian children, along with all children. It's led to me getting threats, needing security, and they have tried to ruin my career. It has been incredibly painful, but the pain does not compare in the slightest to what the children of Gaza experience. My dedication to children and their human rights is stronger than any of it. So that's what you've done. You actually turned the most popular children's influencer in the world with what built the most streamed show on all of Netflix ever for children on top of YouTube. I was recently looking at I didn't even know views like that were possible, like 1.1 billion outside of Gangnam Style or whatever. I was like, I did not know this existed. And she's only been doing this for 5-6 years. She's a multi-million dollar, honestly, maybe $1 billion brand, here in the US. They sell stuff of hers at like Target. So you have turned that person into one of the most prominent, spokespeople for the children of Gaza by branding them anti-Semitic. We're just, news commentators and others. But the more that this comes for other people inside of the system, you just make it so that you look at the ADL thing and you just laugh. And then next time they're going to come and talk to me about anti-Semitism, even if it's genuinely anti-Semitic, I'm like, I need 6 other sources. I need to, or let me check it out for myself.
Any credibility.
Exactly. That's what I do.
Any credibility.
It's like when someone calls something racist. I'm like, all right, show it to me. Let me see. Let me scrutinize it for myself. I don't believe you. That's my number. If the media is saying it, I'm like, let me check it out. Hate crime attack. I got to see all the details. If it didn't happen on camera, don't believe it. Same thing here. It's one of those where they have turned it into a social weapon against everybody. And we are now, I think, collectively at a point where we're like, if you are not outwardly, denying the Holocaust or whatever, and if it's about Israel, I'm not going.
Well, and guess what? Yeah. Genuine anti-Semitism is on the rise, and it's precisely because of the actions of Israel and the insistence that every Jew must be associated with it, which is preposterous. And in and of itself, anti-Semitic. I mean, just think about the discourse around Zoran winning in New York, and which continues to this day about, oh, he needs to do more to appeal to the Jewish community, blah, blah, blah. Then you actually look at the numbers, you're like, wait a second, he has overwhelming support. He has more support than any of the rest of these people with the Jewish community in New York. So maybe stop being so one-dimensional and caricaturish and stereotyping people and what they care about and their position on this issue, because no, turns out not every Jewish American wants to be associated with the genocide being perpetrated in their names in Gaza. It is utterly and completely disgusting. And so then when you have this intense censorship, and when it's so clearly weaponized to just completely crush any sort of legitimate dissent on our nation's policy, by the way, vis-a-vis a foreign country, vis-a-vis the country of Israel, and opposition and horror at what is being done there. When you have that, then yeah, I mean, this is part of why people like Nick Fuentes, who are genuine white nationalists and genuinely anti-Semitic, guess what? You have a lot of people who are, oh, well, what he's saying is making sense. No, he has a disgusting ideology. What is he's saying does not make sense. But should you be surprised? Are you remotely surprised that those are the types of people who will gain traction in this moment? You certainly shouldn't be surprised by that. And the ADL is probably, part and parcel of sparking more anti-Semitism than any other group in America outside of the U.S. federal government. Let's go ahead and play this next part. So obviously there's this disgusting alliance between, the absolute psychos in Israel, the psychos in our national government, and the evangelical Christian base, some of whom, believe, and certainly some of the leaders of whom believe that it is their God, it is their duty to God to support Israel, no matter how many babies they massacre. So as emblematic of that, here is Mark Levin talking about how this is God's war that we're fighting. Take a listen.
This is good versus evil. This is civilization, as the ambassador said, versus the barbarians. We're fighting the 7th century. And we just beat the crap out of them. This is a righteous war we're fighting. And let me say this is God's war that we're fighting right now. And if Europe is too stupid to understand, that's their problem. I will remind you, that's where Hitler was born.
CUFI conference there, Christians United for Israel, and he's saying, oh, this is good versus evil. Really? The good side is the one that's massacring and starving the babies, starving the entire population. The good side is the one that just announced complete and, authorized complete ethnic cleansing displacement plan into concentration camps, which is currently in talks with different nations to permanently displace Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. That's what your religion is telling you? That is utterly absurd and disgusting.
But it's also
and so counter to any basic sense of morality.
It's also so inarguable because if they're fighting, I mean, people have always made this term, but it's like if you fight God's war, then nothing is out of the question.
Of course, yeah.
And that's why they frame it that way.
That's what makes it so sick.
This is God's war that we're fighting. If Europe is too stupid to understand, that's their problem. I will remind you, that's where Hitler was born. It's like, where does this shit come, And look, that is the perfect view into a Republican support for Israel, a quasi, either pre-diabetic or diabetic man who could barely breathe whenever he's giving his speech in front of a bunch of evangelical boomers, who have been brainwashed into the specific type of Christian dispensationalism for support of the political state of Israel. Look, I'm not Christian. It's not my job to sit here and to litigate these intra-Christian debates.
But you can be a human with a view.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just like, it seems pretty crazy to me, but it's not my beef. But it's just one of those where I just feel that you can't help but look at that and see the psychopathy of what it takes at this point to be so rabidly pro-Israel. That's who they are. They look down on you, by the way, completely, and they have nothing but contempt, unfortunately, for all of us.
It used to be the right that was more aggressive in the you should be actually judgmental of extremist religious views, and the left that was more morally relativist. I
still think that's true on Islam, but anyway,
you should. I think if you're religious belief is leading you to support horrors that are morally atrocious, yes, I think that should be subject to judgment. I think in a free society, I think that should be absolutely subject to judgment.
You're talking to an OG Richard Dawkins guy, all right? I've been there from day one, but
yeah.
I did come to find that it does turn you into a little bit of a debate, bro, and a little bit, you know, it doesn't accomplish necessarily the goal that we would want.
We may need to bring it back.
But yeah, maybe we need to bring it back.
Let me just, one more piece here. We don't have an element for it, but it fits in with the Mark Levin piece and it's very important. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a judge at the International Court of Justice. Of course, they're the ones hearing South Africa's claim, along with others who have now joined the case, that Israel is committing genocide. And there was one judge there, the Ugandan vice president of the ICJ, who had put out a dissenting opinion that was just pure Israeli Hasbara. And it was, I mean, it sounded like it was literally written, and it may have been, by the Israelis. It was like, what is going on with this lady? Well, now she has come out, Saagar, and said that, quote, God is counting on me to stand on the side of Israel, that the signs of the end times are being shown in the Middle East right now. So now we understand why she was so out of step with all of the rest of the, including the American one, by the way, all of the rest of the judges at the ICJ in this dissenting opinion. She is not evaluating facts. She is, you know, coming from this place of religious extremism and, you know, her view that the end times are nigh, and so she has to do whatever she can to back up Israel no matter what. So, you know, not only are the consequences here domestically in the U.S., but the consequences of these viewpoints are global as well.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.